Have you ever wondered what it takes for someone to think about you non-stop, crave your attention, and truly see your value? It's like that moment when someone suddenly realizes the person they've been treating poorly is actually the one they can't stop thinking about. The one they took for granted is now their deepest craving. It sounds like a plot from a novel, but this is real life. It happens the moment you decide to step away from being their puppet. When you stop feeding their need for validation and turn your focus inward to your own strength, that's when the magic begins. When you pull back, reclaim your personal power, and create that distance, they begin to feel the magnetic pull of your absence. This isn't about playing games or ghosting. This is about showing them what life looks like without your presence. Suddenly, your existence becomes more than just convenience. It becomes a source of stability and energy that they can no longer live without. Imagine them going about their daily routine, but something feels off. Your usual texts, the familiar sound of your voice, all gone. The world becomes a little colder, a little emptier. They try to fill the void with distractions or other people, but nothing works. It's in those quiet moments of solitude that they start realizing how much your presence meant to them. Your absence becomes a mirror reflecting back all the ways they took you for granted, all the missed opportunities to appreciate you. As the saying goes, absence sharpens love, presence strengthens it. By stepping back, you're giving them the opportunity to feel the weight of your absence, recognize what they've lost, and understand just how much you mattered. Sometimes it's only in the void that our true worth is realized. Now let's affirm together, I am highly valuable. Say it with conviction. Let it be known that you understand your worth, that you're no longer at anyone's beck and call. You are unshakable, standing strong in your value. The foundation of reclaiming your power. Before we dive into why they come back after you've distanced yourself, it's crucial to understand the foundation behind this transformation. Imagine distancing yourself, creating space between you and them. Is that enough to bring them back? The answer is no, not by itself. In order to make a lasting impact, you must focus on you. Distance alone is not the key. It's what you do with that space that matters. If you're hoping they'll start missing your absence, it's only possible if there's already a hidden spark within them. But what if there wasn't? What if they never truly valued you, and all they miss is the convenience you once provided? So what now? Is this the end of the road? Absolutely not. The reasons I'm about to share with you are the ones that can make them start craving you. But here's the catch. These reasons will only work if you grasp them fully and let them guide you on the right path. This is how you light the flame in their heart, how you turn the tables. So now that you've got a clearer understanding, let's move on to the part you've been waiting for, the reasons why they'll come back craving your presence. And friends, please make sure that you don't miss even one reason, as each one is crucial to turning their indifference into desire. Reason 1, the shock of unexpected growth. Let's dive deeper into one of the most powerful reasons they'll come back after you've created that distance, the shock of unexpected growth. This one is particularly impactful because it taps into something deeply human, the tendency to take things for granted, especially when they seem constant and predictable. Think about it. They've become so used to you being a certain way, following a certain pattern. Maybe they expected you to always be there, always available, always putting them first. It's almost like they've written you into a role in their life where they expect nothing to change. And in their mind, they have you all figured out, reliable, predictable, perhaps even easy to overlook. But here's where the real transformation happens. Instead of conforming to the expectations they've placed on you, you pull back and use that space to work on yourself. You invest in your growth, mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. This growth isn't about proving them wrong or winning them back. It's about something much bigger than them. It's about you, finding your true self, your purpose, and your power. Let's pause for a second here and bring in a little Stoic philosophy, because it fits perfectly. The Stoics, especially Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus, taught that we should focus on the things we can control, primarily our own thoughts, actions, and growth. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength, said Marcus Aurelius. What you're doing when you step back is exactly that. You're shifting the focus from things outside your control, like how they see you or how they treat you, and turning it inward to your own mind, your own development. This transformation is subtle at first, but then it becomes undeniable. You are no longer the same person they once knew. You're evolving, growing stronger, more confident, more self-assured. You've stopped living for their validation and started living for your own peace of mind and personal growth. And here's the thing, growth shocks people. When you've grown unexpectedly, it throws people off. You've changed the script. They thought they knew how you'd act, how you'd respond, and how you'd always be there. But now, you're not. You're no longer their puppet. You're no longer predictable. They expected you to come crawling back, maybe even a little broken or hurt by the distance, but instead, they're met with someone new, someone who has evolved beyond their understanding. Imagine how that feels from their perspective. They're expecting the same old version of you. They're prepared for the dynamics they've always known. But when they see you, whether in person or even through the subtle changes in how you communicate online or through mutual friends, it's like they've encountered a completely different person. You've shifted the power balance. They see you smiling more, you carry yourself differently. There's a new glow about you, a confidence that wasn't there before. Maybe you've started taking care of your body, exercising more, or perhaps you've found a new passion, picked up a new skill, or begun surrounding yourself with people who uplift you. Whatever it is, they can't quite put their finger on it, but they can feel it. And it stings. They're left wondering what happened. How did I miss this? When did they become so strong, so centered? That's the shock of unexpected growth. In Stoicism, we learn that life is in a constant state of flux. Nothing is permanent. Everything is always changing. The only constant in life is change, said the philosopher Heraclitus, a concept Stoicism embraces fully. But here's the catch. Most people are resistant to change, especially when it happens to the people they think they know. They cling to the past, to the person you once were, because it makes them feel comfortable. They like knowing where they stand with you. It gives them a sense of control. But now your growth has shattered that illusion. They don't know where they stand with you anymore. And it makes them uncomfortable. It makes them think. And that's where the power of your unexpected growth really kicks in. It forces them to reflect on themselves, on their role in your life, and, most importantly, on the mistakes they made in taking you for granted. Now, instead of them controlling the narrative, you've flipped the script. You've shown them that you're not who they thought you were. You've grown, evolved, and become something more, and that more is impossible to ignore. In Stoic terms, this growth is a reflection of your inner discipline. You've stopped seeking external validation and have instead turned inward, finding value in your own journey, in your own progress. You've done what Stoicism teaches so well. You've controlled the controllable. You've worked on yourself, not to impress or please others, but to become the best version of you. And here's where it really gets interesting. The more you grow, the more they'll notice the distance. They start to miss what they once had. But it's not just you they miss. It's the version of you they once knew, the version they could control. Now they see that this new evolved version of you is something they don't understand, something they can't predict, and people are always drawn to what they can't have. The Stoics were all about self-mastery, and that's exactly what you've achieved. You've mastered the art of stepping back, focusing on yourself, and growing into a version of you that commands respect and admiration. So what's the result of this unexpected growth? You become someone they can't help but think about, someone they crave. They may not have valued the old you, but this new, confident, self-assured version, that's someone they want in their life. Growth makes you unforgettable. It's the ultimate reminder that you are not the person they took for granted. And once they realize this, they'll feel that loss deeply. So keep growing, keep evolving, not for them, but for you. In the end, your unexpected growth isn't just a shock to them, it's a gift to yourself. It's the path to true freedom, and in that freedom, you'll find a strength that no one can take away from you. Reason 2. The magnetic pull of self-sufficiency. Now let's dive into one of the most underrated, yet incredibly powerful reasons someone starts to crave your presence. The magnetic pull of self-sufficiency. It's something we often overlook in ourselves, but trust me, when you master this, it changes everything. Think about it. When you're constantly available, always there to support, always making the effort in a relationship or situation, it can start to feel like they have the upper hand, right? It's almost as if you've built this dynamic where they know you're always going to be there, always ready to respond or help. They might start taking your efforts for granted, and that's where things go wrong. But what happens when you take a step back, when you shift your focus from them to you? Here's where it gets interesting and powerful. The moment you decide to invest in yourself, to stop relying on them for validation or happiness, something changes. You're no longer chasing after them, trying to fill that emotional gap. Instead, you begin to cultivate your own happiness, your own sense of fulfillment. And that, my friend, is where the magic of self-sufficiency comes in. Let's anchor this in Stoicism for a moment, because it's perfectly aligned with what the Stoics taught. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, believed that the key to living a fulfilled life wasn't in external things or the approval of others, but in mastering our own thoughts and actions. He said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." In other words, true wealth, true power, comes from needing very little from others. And when you stop needing others to validate you, that's when you become truly magnetic. So let's talk about what happens when you step back and start focusing on your own self-sufficiency. Suddenly, you're no longer that person who needs constant reassurance or attention. You're no longer the one who waits for their call, their text, or their approval. You're busy, you're living your life. You're pursuing your goals, building yourself up, and most importantly, you're happy doing it. This doesn't mean you're cutting people off or becoming completely detached. It just means you've shifted your priorities. Instead of putting someone else at the center of your world, you've put yourself there. You've started to find joy in your own company, in your own growth. You've started to realize that your happiness doesn't depend on what someone else does or doesn't do. And here's where things get really interesting. They notice. People are naturally drawn to those who exude independence and self-assurance. When you're no longer relying on someone else to complete you, you become infinitely more attractive. It's a paradox, but it's true. The less you need from others, the more they're drawn to you. It's as if your energy changes. You're not reaching out for validation, and that makes them want to reach out to you. You see, self-sufficiency has this quiet, irresistible pull. It's not about loudly proclaiming, "I don't need anyone." It's about the calm confidence that comes from within when you know that you are perfectly fine on your own. And that confidence radiates. It's magnetic because it shows you are in control of your own happiness. When you're self-sufficient, you're sending out a message without even saying a word. I'm here because I want to be, not because I need to be. And that's incredibly powerful. Now let's ground this idea in a bit more Stoicism, because the Stoics were all about self-sufficiency. Seneca, another famous Stoic, often spoke about how external things, whether it's money, relationships, or even status, are fleeting and can never bring true fulfillment. He said, "It is the power of the mind to be unconquerable." What this means is that no matter what happens around you, no matter who comes or goes, the real power lies in your ability to remain whole and undisturbed by external circumstances. When you become self-sufficient, you embody this Stoic principle. You're no longer affected by someone's absence or presence in the way you once were. You've built a life that's rich with your own goals, your own passions, and your own growth. And this, ironically, makes people crave you more. Let me give you a real-world example. Imagine you've been in a friendship or relationship where you were always the one reaching out, always the one making plans, always the one investing your time and energy. It's exhausting, isn't it? And over time, that dynamic starts to feel one-sided. They might not even realize how much you've been giving because it's become so normal to them. But then you decide to take a step back, not out of spite, not to play hard to get, but because you've realized that your time and energy are valuable. You start focusing on your own projects. Maybe you hit the gym, start a new hobby, or dive into something that excites you. You begin to invest in you. A few weeks go by and suddenly you notice something. They're the ones reaching out more. They're the ones wondering what you're up to. Why? Because your self-sufficiency has shifted the dynamic. You've become less available, not because you're playing a game, but because you're genuinely invested in your own life. And that independence is incredibly attractive. Here's the thing, when you focus on yourself, when you cultivate self-sufficiency, you're not doing it to get someone's attention. You're doing it for you. You're doing it because you deserve to live a life that feels full and rich, whether someone else is in it or not. And the beauty of it is, when you do this, people can't help but notice the change in you. They'll start to crave the energy you're radiating, the calm, confident, independent energy that says, "I'm thriving, whether you're here or not." That kind of energy is magnetic because it's rare. Most people spend their lives seeking validation from others, constantly looking outward for approval. But when you stop doing that and turn inward, you stand out. You become someone worth craving, not because they think you need them, but because they see that you don't. And let's be real, there's something incredibly appealing about someone who doesn't need constant validation. It makes them wonder, what's going on in their life? Why aren't they reaching out like they used to? What's changed? That curiosity, that intrigue is part of the magnetic pull. They want to know more. They want to understand this new version of you. They start to miss the person who was always there, but now they're also fascinated by the person you've become. Someone who's strong, independent, and self-assured. As Marcus Aurelius wisely said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That's exactly what you've done. You've taken control of your inner world, your mind, your happiness. You've stopped letting external factors, like their attention or lack of it, control you. And in doing so, you've found a new strength that's impossible for them to ignore. So how do you cultivate this self-sufficiency? It starts by recognizing that your value doesn't come from how others see you. It comes from how you see yourself. It's about investing in your own growth, finding joy in your own journey, and understanding that you are enough, whether they're in your life or not. When you do that, when you build a life that you love on your own terms, you naturally become more attractive, not just to them, but to anyone who comes across your path. Because people are drawn to strength, they're drawn to independence, they're drawn to someone who is whole within themselves. So what steps are you taking to cultivate your own self-sufficiency? What goals are you pursuing? What passions are you exploring that make you feel complete within yourself? Remember, this isn't about cutting people off or playing hard to get. It's about building yourself up so that your happiness isn't dependent on anyone else. And the irony of it all is that once you do this, Once you stop seeking their validation, they'll start seeking you. They'll start craving that self-sufficient, independent version of you that radiates strength and confidence. Reason 3, the envy of your newfound confidence. Let's talk about confidence, something that changes the entire game when it comes to how people see and respond to you. Specifically, I want to dive into how your newfound confidence can stir a sense of quiet envy in others. But, and here's the key, this isn't the kind of envy that's rooted in jealousy or negativity. It's the kind that comes with admiration, respect, and sometimes a little insecurity on their part. Now think about this. Before, you may have been in a position where you weren't fully standing in your own power. Maybe you felt unsure of yourself at times, maybe even seeking their approval. We've all been there, right? There's nothing wrong with wanting to feel validated, but when that becomes a habit, people start seeing you as dependent on their acknowledgement. You don't realize it at the time, but they do, and in a subtle way, that can lead to them taking you for granted. But here's the beauty of personal growth. When you start focusing on yourself, something magical happens. You begin to see your own worth, not through the lens of what others think, but from your own understanding of who you are and what you bring to the table. That's when real confidence begins to build. And let me tell you, confidence is one of the most magnetic qualities you can have. Now, here's what's fascinating about this transformation. The confidence you gain doesn't just change how you see yourself, it changes how they see you. And here's where that envy comes into play. Before, they may have felt like they had the upper hand in the relationship, like they were the more self-assured one. You were the one who always looked for a little extra validation, maybe holding back a bit in conversations or actions. But now you're walking with a new sense of certainty, a quiet strength that speaks volumes without you even having to say a word. When they see this shift in you, something stirs inside them. It's a mix of curiosity, respect, and yes, a little envy. They start to wonder, how did they get there? When did they become so self-assured? And the truth is, it's because you've done the work. You've taken the time to build yourself up from the inside, to find value in who you are, independent of what they think. And trust me, that's not just attractive, it's powerful. Let's anchor this in some Stoic wisdom, because confidence is deeply connected to Stoicism. The Stoics believed that true strength and confidence come from within, from mastering our thoughts and emotions, and not being swayed by the opinions of others. Marcus Aurelius captured it perfectly when he said, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." This is exactly what happens when we're not confident. We place too much value on what others think. But once you reclaim that power, once you stop letting their opinions shape your sense of self, you become untouchable. And here's what makes this transformation even more compelling. Confidence isn't about arrogance or thinking you're better than others. No, real confidence is about knowing your worth without needing to prove it to anyone. It's walking into a room with your head held high, not because you need to be noticed, but because you're completely at peace with who you are. And when someone sees that in you, it makes them reflect on themselves. Imagine this scenario. You used to be the one who maybe played it safe, who didn't fully express your opinions or hesitated before making decisions because you didn't want to rock the boat. You were cautious, always considering what they might think, whether they would approve. But now, after focusing on your own growth, something has changed. You're no longer shrinking back. Instead, you're stepping forward with conviction. You're speaking with clarity. And when you make decisions, you're doing so with confidence in your abilities. What do you think that does to them? It shakes their perception of you. They were comfortable with the old dynamic, with you being the one who sought reassurance. But now, they're faced with someone who doesn't need their validation anymore, someone who is comfortable in their own skin, and this shift, this newfound confidence, stirs something in them. They might compliment you on it, saying things like, "Wow, you seem different, more confident." But beneath that compliment is a hint of envy. It's the kind of envy that comes when someone sees something in you that they wish they had for themselves. They might even feel a little insecure because now the power dynamic has shifted. You're no longer the one looking for approval. You've stepped into your own power, and they can sense it. Here's where it gets even more interesting. When you're confident, people around you start to reflect on their own insecurities. They might not say it out loud, but inside they're thinking, how are they so sure of themselves? How did they get there? It forces them to look at their own self-doubt, and that's where the envy grows. But again, this isn't the negative kind of envy. It's more like, I wish I could have that kind of confidence too. You see, confidence isn't just about being bold or assertive. It's about how you carry yourself. It's in the way you respond to situations, the calmness in your decisions, and the quiet strength that comes from not needing external validation. And here's the thing, people are drawn to that. They're drawn to someone who seems to have it all together, not because they're trying to impress anyone, but because they're living authentically. Confidence is contagious. When people see it in you, they want to be around it. They want to understand how you got there, because it's rare. So many people go through life looking for external approval, whether it's from friends, partners, or society. But when you shift that focus inward, when you stop needing their validation and start living for yourself, it changes everything. It makes you stand out. Let's bring in a bit more Stoic philosophy here, because Seneca had a powerful take on this as well. He said, "He who is brave is free." When you have the confidence to live your life on your own terms, without worrying about what others think, you become free. Free from the expectations of others, free from the fear of judgment, and free to be exactly who you are. And that kind of freedom, it's enviable. Now imagine you run into them after this transformation has taken place. They're expecting the same old you, the one who was a little unsure, a little hesitant, but instead they see someone who has completely stepped into their power. You're speaking with certainty, making decisions without second-guessing yourself. And most importantly, you're not seeking their approval. You're just being. They might not know how to respond to this new version of you. On the surface, they'll admire it, maybe even compliment you. But deep down, there's a little voice inside them wondering, how did I not see this before? How did they become so confident, and why don't I feel that way? That's the envy of your newfound confidence. It's not that they dislike you for it. Quite the opposite. They're drawn to you even more because confidence is something we all admire in others, especially when we feel like we lack it ourselves. And here's the key takeaway. This confidence you've built, it's not for them, it's for you. You've done the work, you've invested in yourself, and you're now reaping the rewards. Their admiration, their envy, it's a byproduct of the internal work you've done, not the goal. And that's what makes it so powerful. So how do you keep building this confidence? It's simple. Keep focusing on your own growth. Confidence isn't a destination, it's a journey. It's about continuing to challenge yourself, pushing your boundaries, and knowing that you are enough just as you are. And when you live with that mindset, people can't help but be drawn to you. Confidence is like a quiet fire. It doesn't scream for attention, but its warmth and light are undeniable. And once you've built that fire within yourself, others will be drawn to it, not because you need them to be, but because they want to be around someone who has found their own power. So, what's your next step in building this inner confidence? How are you going to keep pushing yourself to grow, not for anyone else, but for you? Remember, the more confident you become, the more magnetic you become. And that kind of confidence, it's something they'll never forget and always crave. Reason 4, the intrigue of unpredictability. You know that feeling when someone keeps you on your toes? That sense of mystery, of not knowing exactly what they'll do next? It's fascinating, isn't it? Well, unpredictability is one of those qualities that can make someone crave your presence without them even realizing why. People are drawn to what they can't easily understand or predict. It's human nature. We're naturally curious, and when someone breaks away from a pattern we're used to, it catches our attention. It's like watching a movie with unexpected plot twists. You're hooked because you don't know what's coming next. Now let's apply this to your situation. Maybe in the past you were predictable in how you interacted with them. You were always available, always responding the same way, always doing the things they expected of you. There's nothing inherently wrong with being reliable, but when your actions become too predictable, people start to take you for granted. They assume they know you inside and out. They know what to expect from you, and that can make things feel a little too safe. But here's where things get interesting. When you pull back, when you begin to work on yourself, when you start making changes, you disrupt the pattern. Suddenly, you're no longer so easy to read. You're no longer the person they've categorized in their mind as always available or always predictable. And that's when the intrigue starts to build. Think about it. When someone thinks they have you all figured out, they stop paying attention to the details. They stop really seeing you because they assume they know everything there is to know. But when you introduce a little unpredictability, when you step back and start doing things differently, it forces them to sit up and take notice. Now here's where the real power of unpredictability comes into play. When you start living for you, making changes in your life, focusing on your growth, exploring new interests, they start to wonder what's going on. You're not acting the way you used to. You're not as available, not as predictable. Maybe you've taken up a new hobby or started spending time with new people. Maybe you're not replying to messages as quickly as you once did, not because you're playing games, but because you're genuinely busy living your life. And that's incredibly intriguing. Let's ground this in some Stoic wisdom because, believe it or not, unpredictability aligns beautifully with Stoicism. The Stoics believed in embracing change and understanding that life is in a constant state of flux. Heraclitus, a pre-Socratic philosopher who deeply influenced Stoicism, famously said, "The only constant in life is change." When you embody this philosophy, when you allow yourself to evolve and change naturally, you become someone who is always growing, always moving forward. And that kind of constant evolution keeps people guessing in the best possible way. Unpredictability isn't about being erratic or playing mind games. It's about embracing the natural changes that happen when you focus on your personal growth. It's about not being the same person you were a few months ago and letting that growth show in your actions, your energy, and how you interact with the world. Now let me paint you a picture. Imagine you've been in a relationship or friendship where they've grown used to a certain routine with you. They know what you like, how you react, and what you're likely to do in any given situation. But now, after you've pulled back to focus on yourself, things have changed. They reach out to you, and maybe you're not as quick to respond. Maybe they ask to make plans, and instead of jumping at the opportunity like you used to, you take your time, weighing your own schedule and priorities. This doesn't go unnoticed. They start to wonder, why are they acting differently? What's going on in their life? Suddenly, their certainty about you begins to waver, and with that uncertainty comes intrigue. They're no longer as comfortable or complacent because they can't predict what you'll do next. And as frustrating as that might be for them, it's also what keeps them thinking about you. That unpredictability creates a mental loop in their mind where they keep coming back to thoughts of you, wondering what's changed, why you're no longer acting the way you used to. Here's the thing, we're wired to pay attention to things that aren't predictable. It's a survival instinct. Our brains are constantly scanning for things that break the norm, things that feel uncertain, because unpredictability is stimulating. It engages our curiosity and makes us pay closer attention. When you become less predictable, You become more interesting. And that's when people start craving your presence. Not because you're playing hard to get, but because they genuinely don't know what you're going to do next. And the beauty of it? You're not doing this to manipulate anyone. You're doing it because you're focusing on yourself. You're growing, evolving, and naturally, that means you're going to change. You're not the same person who always followed the same routine or did the same things. You've become someone who's embracing new opportunities, new challenges, and new experiences. And that makes you unpredictable in the most captivating way. Let's go even deeper with Stoicism here. Seneca once said, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." What this means is that as you grow and evolve, you naturally leave behind certain habits, patterns, and ways of being. This isn't something to fear, it's something to embrace. When you allow yourself to be unpredictable, to change, to grow, you're signaling to the world and to them that you are not static. You are dynamic, constantly evolving. And that's incredibly powerful. When you're unpredictable, you take back control of the narrative. They're no longer the one who knows exactly what you'll do. Instead, they're left wondering, what's going on with them? Why aren't they acting the way they used to? And that's where the real intrigue lies. Think about it like this. Have you ever watched a TV show that was completely predictable? Every episode followed the same pattern, the same formula. After a while, it gets boring, right? You stop tuning in because there's nothing new to keep you engaged. But when a show has twists and turns, when the characters evolve in unexpected ways, you're hooked. You want to see what happens next because you're not sure where the story is going. The same goes for relationships and connections. When you're always predictable, it's easy for people to tune you out. But when you embrace unpredictability, when you allow yourself to grow and change, it keeps people engaged. They want to know more. They want to understand what's going on in your life, why you're acting differently, and most importantly, what you're going to do next. So how can you cultivate this unpredictability in your life? The key is to focus on your own journey. Start doing things for you. Pick up that hobby you've always wanted to try. Spend time with new people. Challenge yourself in ways that make you grow. When you're living a life that's full of new experiences and growth, unpredictability happens naturally. You don't have to try to be mysterious. It just happens because you're no longer following the same patterns that others have come to expect. And here's the beautiful part. This unpredictability makes you even more attractive. Not in a superficial way, but in a deeply engaging way. People are drawn to those who are constantly growing, evolving, and pushing themselves to be better. When you stop being predictable, when you start living for yourself, you become someone they can't stop thinking about. They're intrigued, they're curious, and that curiosity, it creates a craving for your presence. So what's your next step in embracing unpredictability? How are you going to shake things up in your life? Not for anyone else, but for yourself. Remember, this isn't about playing games or trying to manipulate someone's attention. It's about living your life in a way that keeps you engaged, excited, and constantly evolving. And when you do that, others will naturally be drawn to the mystery and intrigue that comes with your growth. Unpredictability, when done with authenticity, is one of the most captivating qualities you can have. And when they start craving that unpredictability, they're craving you, the real, evolving, dynamic version of you. Reason 5, the realization of what they've lost. This is the most powerful reason someone starts craving your presence after you've given them distance, the realization of what they've lost. This one hits hard because often people don't recognize the value of something until it's no longer there. It's a truth that rings throughout life, and it plays a major role in relationships, friendships, and any connection where one party may have taken the other for granted. Now think about it. When you were fully present in their life, they probably didn't see everything you brought to the table. It's not that they were malicious or intentionally undervaluing you, but they became used to having you around. They took your kindness, your support, your energy for granted because you were always there. It's human nature, really. We often don't realize what someone means to us until they're no longer a constant presence. But when you step back, when you pull away to focus on yourself, suddenly they start to feel the absence. And here's where things get interesting. That absence speaks louder than any words ever could. Let me break it down. Before, they were used to you being there for them. Whether it was through late-night conversations, supporting them when they were down, or just being a steady presence in their life. You were reliable, you were someone they could count on, but in their mind, they assumed that this dynamic would never change. They thought you'd always be there, always showing up the same way you always had. But now, after pulling back and creating space, they start to notice something's missing. It starts small. Maybe they notice that their phone isn't lighting up with your texts as often as it used to. Maybe they don't hear your familiar voice checking in on them like you always did. At first, they might brush it off, thinking it's no big deal, but slowly it sinks in. Your absence starts to feel heavier, more noticeable. And with that absence comes the creeping realization that they've lost something valuable, something they didn't fully appreciate when it was right in front of them. It's funny how the mind works, isn't it? When something is always there, it's easy to overlook. It becomes part of the background, part of the routine. But when it's gone, suddenly it becomes all too clear what they've lost. It's like when you misplace something important, a favorite piece of jewelry, your car keys, or that one item you always thought would be easy to find. At first you think, oh, it'll turn up. But as time goes by, you start to feel that sinking feeling. The same happens in relationships. Let's ground this in some Stoic wisdom, because this is exactly what the Stoics taught. Epictetus often spoke about how we should never become too attached to things, whether it's people, objects, or circumstances, because everything in life is fleeting. He said, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." What this means is that the Stoics believed in finding strength within ourselves, rather than relying too much on external sources of happiness. So when you pull back and step into your own strength, focusing on your own growth, you're embodying this Stoic principle. You're no longer relying on them to fulfill you or to validate your worth. Instead, you're cultivating your inner resilience, your own happiness. And when they start to feel the weight of your absence, that's when the realization hits them. They've lost something they didn't fully understand until now. Now let's be real. This realization doesn't always happen instantly. It builds over time. At first they might feel a little confused, maybe even indifferent. But as more time passes, they start to reflect. They start to replay memories in their head. Those moments when you were there for them, when you supported them, when you added something irreplaceable to their life. And that reflection, it's powerful. They begin to realize all the small things you did, the things they may have brushed off as insignificant at the time. Maybe it's the way you always listened when they were going through something tough. Maybe it's the way you made them laugh, or how you made them feel seen and understood. These little things, the ones they didn't notice before, suddenly become glaringly obvious in your absence. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine them going through a difficult day. Maybe something went wrong at work, or they're feeling stressed about something in their personal life. Before, they could rely on you to be there, to lend an ear, offer advice, or simply provide comfort. But now, you're not there like you used to be. They don't have that reliable presence anymore. They don't have the emotional support they took for granted. And that's when it hits them. They start to feel the emptiness where you once were. And it's not just the physical absence, it's the emotional void. The little moments that once seemed routine now feel like something they desperately miss. They start thinking, how did I not appreciate this when I had it? Here's the thing about loss. It often takes losing something to fully appreciate its value. When you were always there, always available, they didn't have to think about what life would be like without you. But now that you've created distance, they're forced to confront it. They have to face the reality that you're no longer in their life in the same way, and that's a heavy realization to carry. And let's be clear, this isn't about you cutting them off or playing games to make them miss you. It's about creating space for yourself. It's about reclaiming your energy and focusing on your own growth. But in doing that, they start to see just how much value you brought into their life. It's a natural consequence of the distance you've created. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting. Once they realize what they've lost, they start to crave it. They want that feeling back, that sense of comfort, that emotional support, that connection they didn't fully appreciate before. But here's the kicker. They also know they can't just waltz back into your life as if nothing happened. They can't expect you to pick up right where you left off. They understand, maybe for the first time, that your presence in their life was a privilege, not a given. That's a tough pill to swallow for someone who took you for granted. But it's also incredibly powerful for you because now the dynamic has shifted. You're no longer the person waiting around for their attention. You've moved forward, you've grown, and if they want to be part of your life again, they'll need to prove that they deserve it. This brings me to another powerful Stoic idea, the concept of impermanence. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that everything in life is temporary. He said, "Loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight." The Stoics understood that change and loss are inevitable parts of life. And rather than clinging to what's gone, they embraced the flow of life, knowing that everything, even relationships, evolves. When you step back and create space for yourself, you're embracing this concept of change. You're not clinging to the old dynamic. You're allowing things to evolve naturally. And in that space, they have the opportunity to realize what they've lost. It's through this change that they start to see your true value, often for the first time. So how does this realization affect them? It makes them reflect. It makes them reconsider how they treated you, how they undervalued you, and it stirs something deep within them. That's when they start to crave your presence again, not because they want things to go back to how they were, but because they finally understand how much you meant to them. So what's your takeaway here? It's simple. By focusing on yourself, by giving them the space to feel your absence, you allow them to recognize your value on their own terms. You're not forcing anything. You're just living your life, growing, evolving, and in doing so, you create the conditions for them to truly realize what they've lost. And when they do, that's when they'll start craving your presence in a way they never did before. Because now, they understand exactly what they had and exactly what they lost. Reason 6. The desire to be part of your new journey. Now let's talk about something really powerful, the desire to be part of your new journey. This one's particularly interesting because it taps into that deep, almost primal need we all have. The desire to belong, to be part of something meaningful. And when someone sees you embarking on a new chapter of your life, growing, evolving, chasing your goals, it sparks something inside them. Suddenly they realize they might be missing out on something big, and that feeling, it's hard to shake. Think about it for a second. You've stepped back, created some distance, and during that time, you've focused on you. You've been growing in ways that maybe even surprise yourself. You've taken on new challenges, explored new interests, and started building the kind of life that feels rich, fulfilling, and exciting. It's like you're writing the next chapter of your story, and it's a good one. But here's the thing, while you're busy living your life and moving forward, they're watching from the sidelines. They might not say it out loud, but they're noticing. They see the changes. Maybe it's through social media, mutual friends, or even brief interactions where they can feel that something's shifted in you. They can sense that you're no longer the same person who used to be so focused on them. You're someone who's focused on yourself now. And that's where the desire to be part of your new journey kicks in. It's a funny thing about human nature. When we see someone growing, achieving, or evolving in ways we didn't expect, it triggers something inside us. It makes us think, wait a minute, what's going on here? How did I miss this transformation? It creates this feeling of being left out, of not wanting to miss out on something that's becoming undeniably interesting and meaningful. And let's be real, when you start to live your life with purpose and direction, that energy is magnetic. People are naturally drawn to those who are moving forward, who are pushing themselves to be better, and who are creating a life that's vibrant and full of possibility. It's like you've unlocked this new level of yourself, and that's something others want to be around. Because let's face it, who wouldn't want to be part of an exciting, inspiring journey? Now let's anchor this in some Stoic wisdom, because this idea of living with purpose, of moving forward on your own path, is deeply connected to Stoic philosophy. The Stoics believed in focusing on what's within our control and living in alignment with our own values. Marcus Aurelius often spoke about the importance of staying true to ourselves, no matter what others think or do. He said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." In other words, stop worrying about how others perceive you or what they think about your journey. Just live it. And that's exactly what you're doing. You've stopped worrying about how they see you, about whether they approve or not. Instead, you've started living your life with purpose, setting goals that matter to you, and making decisions that align with who you want to become. You've chosen to be the hero of your own story. And that shift, it's not just powerful, it's inspiring. Now imagine how that looks from their perspective. Maybe at first they thought you were just going through a phase, that this whole focusing on yourself thing would eventually pass and you'd go back to the way things were. But now, as time goes on, they're seeing that this isn't a phase, it's a transformation. You're becoming someone new, someone who's moving forward with or without them, and that realization hits them harder than they expected. They start to see the things you're doing, whether it's pursuing a new passion, building a career, or just embracing a healthier, more fulfilled lifestyle, and they feel that pull. It's the desire to be part of this new version of you, this exciting journey you're on. And here's the thing, they know they can't just jump back into your life the way things were before. They understand that if they want to be part of this next chapter, they'll need to step up. They'll need to bring more to the table because you've leveled up, and they can't be the same old version of themselves if they want to be in your world again. It's almost like you've set a new standard, not just for yourself, but for the people you allow into your life. You've grown, and you're not going to settle for anything less than what matches your growth. And trust me, they feel that. They know that if they want to be part of your journey, they need to show up in a way they didn't before. But here's what's so fascinating about this process. It's not just about them wanting to be with you. It's about them wanting to be part of something bigger than themselves. When they see you evolving, it makes them reflect on their own life. It makes them question whether they've been growing, whether they've been challenging themselves, and whether they're living up to their own potential. And that's when they start thinking, if I don't step up, I might get left behind. That fear of missing out on not just you, but on the exciting, inspiring journey you're on, creates a powerful pull. Let's bring this back to the idea of Stoicism, because the Stoics were all about progress and self-improvement. Seneca said, "As long as you live, keep learning how to live." This is exactly what you're doing. You've embraced the mindset of constant growth, of learning, of evolving, and when people see that in you, It inspires them to want the same for themselves. They don't want to be left behind, watching from the sidelines as you move forward. They want to be part of that journey, your journey. But here's the key: you're not changing for them. You're not evolving because you hope they'll notice. You're doing it for you. You've made the decision to live your life fully, to push yourself, and to grow into the best version of yourself, regardless of whether they're part of the picture or not. And that's what makes it so powerful. Your growth isn't dependent on them, but if they want to be part of it, they have to grow too. Think about it like this: you're building something incredible. Whether it's a new career, a new mindset, or just a healthier, more vibrant version of yourself, you're creating a life that's full of meaning. And they can see that. They can feel the energy shift around you, and they want to be a part of it. But they also know that this new version of you isn't going to accept the same old patterns, the same old behavior. You've raised the bar, and if they want to join you, they're going to have to meet you at this new level. And here's where the desire becomes even more powerful. It's not just about wanting to be in your life. It's about wanting to be part of the growth. They want to be part of the exciting new things you're doing, the challenges you're taking on, and the success you're building. Because when someone sees you thriving, it makes them want to thrive too. It's like they're watching a flower bloom and realizing they've been standing still while you've been growing. That feeling, that realization, is what makes them crave your presence. They don't want to be left out. They don't want to miss out on the journey you're on, and they definitely don't want someone else stepping in and enjoying the fruits of your growth. They want to be there, experiencing it with you, but they also know they need to be worthy of that place in your life. So how do you continue this journey? By staying focused on yourself, by continuing to set new goals, take on new challenges, and push yourself to grow in ways that excite you. Don't worry about whether they'll catch up or whether they'll try to re-enter your life. That's not your focus. Your focus is on living your life fully, on creating a journey that feels rich and meaningful to you. And when you do that, people will naturally want to be part of it. They'll crave being in your life, not because they think you need them, but because they want to experience the amazing things you're building for yourself. And if they truly want to be part of your journey, they'll step up, they'll grow alongside you, and they'll show you that they're ready to be part of this exciting new chapter. But here's the most important thing to remember: whether they step up or not, your journey continues. You're building something incredible, and that journey is yours, with or without them. Reason 7. The fear of losing you to someone else. Now we talk about something that strikes right at the core of human nature: the fear of losing you to someone else. This one is deep because it taps into one of the most primal emotions we all experience at some point: fear. And not just any fear, the fear of loss, the fear of seeing someone else take your place in someone's life, the fear of realizing that you could be thriving and happy with someone new. Think about it from their perspective. You've been stepping back, focusing on yourself, and growing in ways they didn't expect. You're becoming stronger, more confident, more self-assured. You're no longer the person who's always available, always there to cater to their needs. Instead, you're prioritizing your own growth, your own happiness, and your own life. And that's when something starts to shift in their mind. At first, they might not notice much. Maybe they think you're just doing your own thing for a while, that things will eventually return to how they were. But as time goes on, and as you continue to glow, grow, and move forward, something hits them. What if someone else sees what I didn't see? What if someone else steps in and appreciates them in ways I didn't? That fear, it's real. It's the kind of fear that makes them sit up, pay attention, and start to realize that they might be about to lose something special. Because here's the truth: when someone sees you thriving, when they see you becoming the best version of yourself, they start to realize that you're not just going to be on your own forever. They know, deep down, that someone else will see your value, someone else will step up and appreciate what they took for granted. Let's break this down. Before, they might have been comfortable in the knowledge that you were always there. They felt secure, maybe even a little too secure, thinking that no matter what, you'd be available, that they had all the time in the world to figure things out. But when you step back, when you start investing in your own happiness, it triggers something they weren't prepared for, the fear of losing you, not just to the distance you've created, but to someone else entirely. And here's the thing, people don't often realize what they have until they see the possibility of someone else stepping in. It's like a switch flips in their brain, and suddenly they're faced with the idea that you could be moving on with someone new, someone who sees everything they overlooked. That's when it hits them just how valuable you are. Let's add some Stoic wisdom here, because this ties beautifully into Stoicism's teachings on attachment and loss. The Stoics believed in embracing the impermanence of all things, including relationships. Epictetus often reminded his students that nothing in life is truly ours, not even the people we love. He said, "The key is to keep company only with people who uplift you, whose presence calls forth your best." This is what you're doing by stepping back and focusing on your growth. You're aligning yourself with people, situations, and opportunities that uplift you, and that's where the fear creeps in for them. They realize you've moved into a space where you're attracting the best into your life, and they're afraid someone else will step in and take the place they once had. Imagine how that feels for them. They see you shining brighter than ever. They see your confidence growing, your independence flourishing, and they start to wonder, what if someone else notices? What if someone else steps in and appreciates them for who they are? That's when the fear of losing you to someone else becomes real. They know they're no longer the only option, no longer the center of your world, and the idea of you moving on with someone new, it shakes them to their core. Here's where it gets even more powerful. This fear isn't just about losing you physically. It's about losing the emotional connection they once had with you. It's the fear of being replaced, of seeing someone else make you happy in ways they failed to. And the thing is, when you're growing and thriving on your own, you're naturally going to attract people who are drawn to that energy, people who see your worth, who appreciate your journey, and who want to be part of your life. Let's be real here. When they see you living your best life, surrounded by people who uplift you, it makes them realize what they could lose. They start to imagine you with someone else, someone who values you in ways they didn't. Maybe it's seeing you smile in a way they haven't seen in a long time. Maybe it's hearing about new people you're spending time with or new experiences you're having. Whatever it is, it hits them hard, and that fear of being replaced becomes all too real. Think about it like this. Have you ever been in a situation where you didn't appreciate something until someone else showed interest in it? It's like when you're at a party and there's a snack you've been casually picking at, not paying much attention to, but the moment someone else comes over and starts raving about how good it is, suddenly you want more of it. You realize, wait a second, I didn't appreciate this enough, and now you feel the urgency to claim it before it's gone. That's exactly what happens when they start fearing that someone else might step into your life. And here's the kicker. This fear of losing you to someone else isn't just about losing access to you. It's about losing access to the best version of you. The version that's growing, evolving, and becoming more confident every day. The version that is no longer waiting around for their attention or validation. They know that if they lose you now, they're losing someone who's becoming their most powerful, fulfilled, and authentic self. Let's tie this back to Stoicism again, because the Stoics had a powerful approach to relationships and attachment. Seneca said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." This quote reminds us that time is precious, and when someone sees that they've wasted the time they had with you, the realization hits them hard. They start to see the moments they took for granted, the opportunities they missed to appreciate you, and now they're terrified that someone else will step in and seize what they didn't. Now let's be honest here, this fear is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it can make them realize they need to step up, that if they want to be part of your life, they'll have to start showing up in ways they didn't before. But on the other hand, it's also a fear they have to wrestle with on their own. Because by the time they realize what they've lost, by the time they start fearing that someone else will take their place, you've already moved forward. You're not waiting around for them to come to terms with their feelings. You're living your life, pursuing your goals, and attracting people who see your value without hesitation. And here's where it gets even more empowering for you. This whole process, it's not about you trying to make them jealous or intentionally making them fear losing you. It's about you focusing on yourself, on becoming the best version of who you are, and in doing so, naturally attracting the right people into your life. If they're truly meant to be part of your journey, they'll step up. They'll face that fear of losing you. And they'll realize they need to show up differently if they want to be in your life. But here's the most important part. Whether they step up or not, you're still moving forward. You're still growing, evolving, and living your life to the fullest. And that's the ultimate power. The fear of losing you is something they'll have to deal with, but it's not your responsibility to manage their feelings. Your focus is on your own happiness, your own growth, and attracting the right people who see your value from the start. So what's the takeaway here? By focusing on yourself, by building a life that's full of meaning, purpose, and joy, you naturally create a space where people fear losing you, not because you're playing games, but because you've become someone who is irreplaceable. They start to see that if they don't step up, someone else will. And that fear, it's what makes them crave your presence more than ever before. Thank you for joining me on this journey of self-transformation. Remember, the power is in your hands to redefine your worth, grow into the best version of yourself, and create a life others will naturally crave to be a part of. Keep pushing forward, embracing your strength, and never settling for less than you deserve. Your journey is just beginning, and the best is yet to come. If this video resonated with you and you believe it could help someone else, please consider subscribing to our channel and sharing this video. Your support helps grow our community, empowering more people like you to transform their lives.